What's up YouTube, this is Demordred, and today we are covering Thea the Awakening. So first up, what is Thea the Awakening? Well, Thea was created by Muha Games back in November of 2015 is when it was released. And you might be asking, Demordred, why are you doing a video series about this game that is a year and a half old? Well, one, I love this game, and two, it's gone through some updates since its release, and the thing that I've noticed with a lot of videos out there on YouTube is that some of the information is incorrect. Either it's outdated and has been patched over to change things, or the information is just misguided based off of incorrect assumptions. And so I'm creating this series kind of to help people get into the game and get started. So Thea is a turn-based strategy survival game based on Slavic mythology. Now obviously the designers took a few liberties with the mythology to either make it fit into the game or make it a little bit more interesting. So not everything is going to be 100% accurate or at times resemble the actual mythology. Just bear with it and enjoy it for its fun factor versus its accuracy to the mythos. So the first thing I'm going to cover for this kind of intro guide is a lot of the functionality that you encounter when you first start up the game, which is this screen here. So number one, we're going to cover profiles. When you first start the game, you have a base profile. If you want to create your own, whether you have multiple people in the household playing or you're like me and you have a profile for doing YouTube videos, you have a profile for streaming, and you have a profile for doing your personal gaming, down here on the left side you're going to see change profile. Now there's a slight design flaw here in that when you mouse over change profile, it changes color, implying that you would click on it to do so, but when you click, it does nothing but change the color. What you have to do is click on the name of the profile just above it, and that will open up the profile window. As you can see, I have several profiles already created. For you, you'll just have current player when you first create the game. You could keep that, but I recommend creating your own profile, in which case you would just click new profile, name it whatever you want. You could put it in the system profile. I just recommend keeping all of your profiles in the game folder. That's what I end up doing, and that just makes it easier to find because you just go to your game folder and boom, there's all your profiles set up. Now once you have more than one profile created, whenever you need to switch them, you would just click whichever one you're wanting to go to and click select, and that would set up the profile that you chose. Additionally, if you ever want to delete a profile, it's pretty self-explanatory over here, and rename and everything else. So I'm going to select my tutorial profile. The other thing is, if you want to set up your languages, whether you want English or something else, you click the little flag down here and you get several options. Obviously I'll be sticking with English. When you click on it, it'll kind of restart the main menu in case you made a different selection. Next up is the settings menu. There's a little bit of confusion with a couple of these with new players, so I'm going to cover what they are and what each setting kind of covers. So for the video aspect, you have ambient occlusion and anti-aliasing. Now as you notice, anything on here, you can just put your mouse over it and eventually a pop-up will come up to kind of describe it in a little bit better. Ambient occlusion and anti-aliasing will make the image look quite a bit better at the cost of a little bit CPU power. So if you have a older computer or an older graphics card, it might be better to turn those off to preserve your system. The third option is show map grid, and basically Thea is a hexagonal map system. So if you don't want to see those hexagons as you're playing, you would just turn this off. For me, it helps being able to see how far something is and kind of calculate where my movement is going to go, so I keep it on. If you have trouble reading some of the things that are in the game, you can turn on bigger text. Then the last two options are map quality and VSync. You can crank up the map quality, which will make it look even better, but it's really going to crank up the usage on your computer. Since I stream and record and everything else as I play, I keep it on a low setting, and the game still looks great with it. VSync, basically what that does is it forces the game to match the refresh rate of your monitor. So even though the game may be running at 300 frames per second, it will overheat your system if it's trying to update 300 frames a second and then throwing out 240 of them. So you can set up either ×1 or ×2, and basically that just means slightly limiting to what your monitor refresh rate, and it'll run slightly higher than your monitor, or you can just be completely strict, set it to ×2, and that will make it match exactly your monitor rate, whether it be 30 or 60 hertz. Moving on to the audio, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. You have your music, sound effects, and voiceover volume. For me, the voiceover seems to be slightly underbalanced versus the other two, so I like to have that higher and then just kind of step them down as I go. Additionally, with me streaming, I like to have the music set a little lower so that I can hear everything else going on. For the gameplay card game options, these are kind of quality of life settings as you continue to play the game. The auto end turn during challenges is once I have played my last card, or I played the only amount of cards that you're allowed, which we'll cover in a different video. This just automatically ends my turn instead of making me go and click the button that'll be found in the bottom corner. It's just a small time saver. The animation time, as you continually play this game, you will start to get annoyed at the challenges, just for the fact that the cards do what they're going to do in a slow manner. So I crank that up to a fast speed, and it just helps the game flow a little bit better for me. Finally, we have the general options for gameplay. You can reset your profile, and then for these, it just kind of comes down to your personal preference. I always recommend watching the intro video because it's interesting, but you know, after the 30, 40, 50th time that you've started the game, play intro kind of gets a little old and you get tired of skipping it. So they actually gave you a selection that you can uncheck a box, and you will no longer play the intro when you start the game. The enemy units animation, I like to keep on because I like to see the enemies move around the map instead of just have them jump from one hex to another hex. Focus on enemy movements is a little annoying for me. Basically, in between your turns, it becomes the enemy's turn to move, and what this does is it makes the camera focus on where they are even if the fog of war is hiding them. And that just annoyed me, so I turned that off, and that allows me to just end my turn. It quickly makes the enemies move where they're going to move, and then the camera is still focused on my team. This was helpful for me for the show unresearched resources. Basically, as you unlock new resources in the resource tree, they'll path to additional resources. And by having this checked, those additional resources, even though you haven't researched them yet, will still show up on the map so that you can see if a really good resource is near you and you might want to research that over others. This one is just another quality of life selection. Basically, as you create your expeditions from your village, they start out allowing any new resources to be used as either food or fuel for campfires. And a lot of times you don't want that, because if you're collecting the high-end materials, you don't want to waste them on food and fuel. You instead want to conserve them so you can bring them back to your village and use them to craft gear or build buildings or things like that. So by unchecking this box, it just automatically makes every group not use new materials, and then you have to go in and manually tell it what materials they're allowed to use for their supplies and what materials they have to save and bring back to the village. And finally, the expedition's animation speed. This is how fast you walk when you click to move from point A to point B, and the map scroll speed is when you use the WASD keys or the arrow keys to move the map, how fast that goes. And all of this will be personal preference really for you. Once you've made your selections and you're happy with them, you just click apply and it's good to go. And that's the basics of getting Thea up and running and getting the settings correct and ready to start a new game. So in my next video, I will be covering starting a new game, selecting your god, and everything that goes in that. So until next time, this was Demordred. If you liked the video, click that thumbs up. If you want to see more of my videos as they get released and get updated about it, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Until next time, thanks for watching.